I'm Mariana Evanstein. Welcome. We begin in the Spanish region of Valencia, where emergency crews rescued a woman who was trapped in a car next to the body of her sister-in-law for 3 days following the recent historic flash floods in the region. The rescue has mostly turned to recovery efforts days after the floods subsided. Dozens of people are still missing in the aftermath. The death toll from the natural disaster has risen to 211.
The devastating flash floods have mobilized volunteers from around Spain to travel to Valencia in their thousands to help with cleanup efforts where they can.
We arrived around 7 in the morning. We don't know where we are being sent yet. We're a bit nervous. We're looking forward to working and being helpful.
Residents are grateful for the extra hands to remove the thick mud and debris from their homes at a time when they are feeling otherwise ignored.
Nobody came from the authorities. Nobody. Nobody. Do you know what it's like when nobody has come here to see if we need anything? People have to come from other regions on foot to give me and my neighbors a hand. This is an outrage. No aid, no nothing. No troops, nothing. They have left us alone. We have cleaned our own mud. We have had to find food ourselves.
Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announced he will be sending another 10,000 troops and police officers to the affected areas to help local authorities. It is Spain's largest peacetime deployment. He also acknowledged that authorities have been slow to react.
I am aware that the response that is being given is not enough. I know that. I know that there are severe problems and shortages, that services have collapsed, municipal offices are buried by mud, desperate people searching for their relatives, people who cannot access their homes, homes destroyed and buried by mud. I know we have to do better.
Many residents in areas hit by the floods say the early warning systems by local authorities failed them. As Valencia is coming to terms with the scale and cost of this natural disaster, questions of responsibility loom large.
I'm joined in the studio by DW correspondent Nicole Ris, who is usually reporting for us from Spain. Nicole, really great to have you here in Berlin to talk about what's been happening there. So 10,000 troops have now been sent to flood-hit Valencia, but the Spanish Prime Minister has been saying he knows this is actually not even enough.
And he's probably right, because we might very easily be looking at one of the biggest climate catastrophes in recent history in Europe. We've seen lots of extreme weather events in these past years, also this year, but nothing alike. So there needs to be more help, and they need to figure out that part. At the moment, we see the largest deployment of military and security forces in times of peace. We might also see some international involvement in the closer future. There are offers on the table, but Spain at the moment is pulling people from its own regions to go into the affected areas. And in a few days, there will also be a declaration of catastrophe zones. The affected areas will be made catastrophe zones. That means that the local government actually can access easily these help funds that they really need. And in the meantime, the Spanish government also needs to make sure that there's unity on the political level, because we've seen the blame game in these past few days. Everybody's looking for the party that is responsible, also because the warning system apparently didn't work as well as it should have worked. But Pedro Sanchez, the Prime Minister of Spain, is currently trying to get everybody together, and that there are not political differences, but everybody is just focusing on this crisis, which will be there not only for a few days, but weeks and months, I think.
You mentioned that Spain has never seen a natural disaster of this kind. Do we know now the scale of what has happened?
I think we have an impression of that scale, but it's too early to really decide how big of an impact is. We're looking at something that in the future probably will be a wound in Spanish society, mentally, economically, historically, people are just trying to sort the bare necessities right now. They're used to torrential rains, but not what happened there. So they're trying to sort out, where are the missing people? Is my loved one still alive or somewhere trapped? Food, water, shelter, the main necessities of life. And this is crisis mode right now. This is naked survival, really. And only in the longer future, I think we will learn how big of a catastrophe there is, because rebuilding needs to be done as well. And it's not going to be from one day to another or from 1 year to another. It's very complex. Whole cities have been devastated, and businesses as well. This will also be a huge economic impact. But at the moment, it's really finding those people who are still trapped and making sure that they're healthy and fine. And it's getting more difficult by the day, of course.
That was DW's Nicole Ris. Thank you so much, Nicole, for all of your reporting.
Journalist Stephen Burgen joins us again. He's been following developments from Barcelona. Stephen, explain to me the conundrum here. We've got thousands of volunteers coming up to help, and then the Prime Minister promising thousands more soldiers and police. I mean, why weren't this help from the state, why wasn't it sent out much earlier? Did the government not realise the scale of this disaster?
A lot of people, particularly in Valencia, are asking this very question. The issue seems to be that the responsibility for taking control of this lies with the regional government, the Valencian government, which has in its powers to request the central government any help that it needs. And in fact, Sanchez said today, rather explicitly, that please, anything you need, just please ask. But out of respect for the autonomous regions, he's not really going to impose that. And it seems to me that, or to many people, that the response is very slow. I mean, this happened on Tuesday, and we're only now talking, as of yesterday, of sending 10,000 troops. And you can see that the people, ordinary people, have taken it into their own hands to try to do something about it, seeing that the official response has been very slow.
The authorities.
There is no one to be accused. Sorry.
No, continue. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, no one wants to be accused of making political capital out of a tragedy like this, but it does seem that there is some political play going on, because the government, the national government, is the Socialist Party, and the regional government is a coalition of the Conservative People's Party and the far-right Vox Party. And unfortunately, it seems that there is a political undercurrent to this. It also seems that there isn't a proper protocol in place for this sort of disaster, or it hasn't been properly implemented.
But that's strange, you saying that, considering this sort of weather hits every year, not to the extreme that it did this time, but surely the state at least is used to this sort of thing happening. Well, yes, and I think this is what everyone's saying. I mean, this is exceptional, but it does happen every year, something on this, although not on this scale. And so, I mean, I think, we're still in the period of mourning, and obviously, there are urgent tasks, but I think there are a lot of questions to be asked about whether the protocol is good enough or whether the government simply didn't implement it. We do know that they didn't send out an alert till 12 hours after the Met Office had issued a red alert, by which time the floodwaters were always, at least a meter deep in many parts of Valencia. So looking ahead, what happens next time something like this happens? I mean, is the government going to be any better prepared?
Well, obviously one would hope so. I think the protocol or the implementation of whatever protocol exists obviously needs to be examined. I think people will now need to think more carefully when there is an alert like this about what they do. For example, parking their cars on higher ground, because so much of the damage that is being cleared up now is just mashed up cars, hundreds, possibly thousands of them. But beyond that, I mean, we're looking, as we're seeing all over the world, very extreme weather events are becoming quite common.
And we may well see this again. And I think there certainly needs to be a major rethink about, you can't do much about the weather until we solve climate change, but certainly about how we respond to these events.
Journalist Stephen Burgen, great talking to you again and getting your take on affairs there in Spain.